Welcome to the 6th round of the Rapid Tournament. Now we are playing very strong amateur player who is rated around 2100, and he started the game with a knight of 3. I'm adjusting pieces and respond with knight of 6. He went for unusual start d3. More or less, if you want to achieve King's Indian attack, he should go for better g3, bishop g2, because now I can take the center for myself, d5, knight bd2, opting maybe for reverse Philidor. If I go now knight c6 and e5, he might go e4. And I wanted here to experiment a little bit and play slightly different variation, because most probably he's going for King's Indian attack with g3, bishop g2, followed by castles, rook e1 and e4. And I remember that against the London system, this attack in King's Indian is not so much great if you go for bishop f5. The point of that one is, after g3, to always have a gap for your bishop with h6, so to not blunder knight h4 before you go h6. If you go e6, you went bishop g2, play d6 now. He went castles, and after bishop e7, rook e1. So now the thing is, he can't push e4 because we can simply take, and then take here. On the end of the trade, the queen is hanging. So after castles, I'm going to show you this line, takes, and here after knight takes e4, there is queen d1, rook takes d1, and bishop takes e4, just grabs the pawn, and black is much better here. So that's why he needs to create some preparation for this. Also on e4, if I take, there is the move knight h4. He started with c3. His idea is to go queen c2 and then e4. But this is actually a wrong approach. That's the whole point of my preparation with bishop on f5. Later on, even if he puts e4 on the board, the d3 pawn will be a weakness on this diagonal. I started with a5. This is very strong move, grabbing the space on the queen side and asking my opponent to declare his idea. Queen c2, so I'm letting him proceed with the plan he wanted. a4, still letting him to push e4, because I know my pawn on a4 is more useful than c3 and queen c2 played in the game. e4 played, and now simply just ignoring the things on the board. Now I'm just thinking between bishop g6 or bishop h7, but of course bishop h7 is better, since knight h4 could be an annoying target on the bishop. And now the big problem is, when they push e5, this bishop is very strong. In the normal King's Indian attack for white, we know that this bishop is staying on c8 and usually finding the square being on b7. But on h7 is creating a lot of problems. He pushed h4, it's a normal move, and now we just need to grab more space in the center, pushed by c5. At that point, we want our knight on c6. He quickly played e5. I went with my knight back, and after knight f1, he completely missed that there is a target on d3 and the whole point of having the bishop on h7. Of course, white could play this variation much better, you know, but that's actually where, practically speaking, experienced players are getting the advantage. c4, now black is completely, according to engine, winning, because this pawn is important, and if I start trading pieces, my endgame is just totally winning. He decided to reroute a knight on h2, and this plan works if the middle is blocked, but he's losing the material. Now I can take on d3 with bishop, I can take it with pawn. With a pawn, I slightly dislike it, because I'm ruining my structure, and also kind of letting him play what he wants, knight g4, followed by bishop e3, queen d2, and I don't feel confident with my pawn on d3. It's protected, but he can always recapture that pawn here. And the best idea is to go directly knight c5. I played rook e8 just because I wanted to have always options for my pieces to come back in defense. He played bishop f1. Now he defended that pawn. But the problem is, now we have the move knight to c5, which I played in the game. And he's facing a lot of problems now. He doesn't have 91 to protect that pawn. He's pinned and this pawn is dropping for sure. At this point, white is looking now to compensate the things on the board with some sort of attack. So he might look for many sort of sacrifices on h6. He started bishop e3, the plan is to go queen d2 and then to sacrifice on h6, followed by some knight g4, knight g5 and to go for checkmate on my king. That's also the reason why I'm playing rook e8, so I can make the gap for my bishop and protect additionally h6 pawn. This is a typical defense against King's Indian attack. Now I'm thinking, should I take with bishop and trade bishops, or should I take with pawn or with knight? But of course here the best move is to take with knight. The reason why? It's you need your bishop on this diagonal. It just controls the light squares on the king side and also helps your king in defense. Taking with pawn, we could take it earlier if you remember, so it doesn't make now sense to take with pawn. But maybe the sequence of queen d2 and then knight e4 looks interesting. On the end of the day, he doesn't have to play queen to d2, he can go for queen c1. So I took knight takes d3 and now I'm targeting the rook on e1. Surprisingly, he moved the queen on d2 and sacrificed the exchange. And that's typical. Once your material down, you're looking to create initiative for that. Took the rook, he took back with rook from a1. And at this point, I just need to look for simplification because we are having exchange. We need to simplify. Now knight c6 looked interesting, but there is some direct sacrifice here. So that's why I played bishop f8 first. He played the knight g4. And I won knight e7. Because at the same way I want to have my knight in the defense, the same way I want my knight in offense, so he can come on e4 or d3 squares. So I have only one problem here, and that's my king's safety. If he managed to open up that side of the board. Black is of course winning here, but I need to be precise in defense and converting this. Many people in blitz or bullet games can easily forget about the king here. He decided to sacrifice bishop takes h6. And I mean, I cannot really do anything else here than just recapturing. If I avoid that one and proceed with my plans, then why I lost the pawn? That's a good question. He doesn't have anything concrete. That's also the point why I played knight e7. So he cannot go knight f6 after this sacrifice. That's the purpose of knight e7 generally. I took here, then he take back with knight. Now he's trading more pieces. And I'm completely fine with that as long he doesn't have any concrete checkmate patterns. Rook cannot lift. That's beautiful to remember that there is no option for rook to get into the game. I took with bishop, he took back with queen. And now the point of defense here is to bring your queen to g7 and you're completely safe. That's the reason why I played the move f6. Because if they take, my queen enters in and offering the trade of the queen. Also, it stops knight g5. And if they want to eliminate that one, they need to allow the queen to get in. So white is simply not in time. What he would like to do now is to have some sort of rook lift, but unfortunately for him, that thing doesn't exist. We need to survive a little bit more of this pressure to declare and say that black is just winning this game. He tried with bishop h3. It's a clever move because putting the pressure on e6 and can be uncomfortable, to be honest. If I go f5, there is knight g5 and, you know, there is some pressure here, then on e6 again. I don't really want to play the move f5 because I would like to keep control over the g5 square with my pawn. But on the other side, he's threatening simply to take here and then later take on e6. That's the reason why I play this defensive, good-looking move, rook a6, defending from the rank. In the past, I used to not find these kind of moves because they are simply more advanced. From the practical point of view, maybe the moves such as queen e7 were looking more easier. And then simply even letting them take this e6 pawn just to get into the straightforward endgame. But rook a6 is postponing all of that for a moment, just to be sure there is no additional pressure on this pawn. Like knight cannot come on g5, cannot come on f4. And if they go on d4, then we're going to simply take knight takes e5 and win another pawn. They push g4. Obviously, the point is to go g5. And if I don't take, to go g6 and trap my bishop. I'm simply rook up here, so even sacrificing one piece for defense and simplifying is the great strategy here. So do not hesitate. If you're so much material up, like a rook here, do not hesitate to enter simple endgame where you're still winning, but you know that your opponent doesn't have any more threats, especially the queens on the board that move by move could increase the pressure on your king. So I play the move queen to e7. The plan is very simple. I want to go queen g7 here. And that's actually what I did. It's even also the best plan according to Engine. He pushed g5, I took on e5. And yeah, I did sacrifice the piece, but in return, I got complete safety for my king. He pushed g6, I played queen g7. He traded queens, I take back with my king, he took my bishop. And yeah, I'm just exchange up, but look at his pawns in the middle. I can also maybe go e4 here, but then he has some knight g5 moves, so I decided just to take this pawn on h7. And if he takes on e5 like he did, we're gonna just simplify the game. Of course, this knight is a very strong piece, so I have to eliminate it, and my knight is bad on d7. So I'm gonna simply take that knight now on e5. He takes back with the rook. And that's only one problem in the position, but on the other side I have perfect counterplay with a3. He can't go b3 because take, and then we push the a2. He decided to take, but this simply activates my rook. So now if I take on a3, he might have this idea of bishop takes e6. Now I have to play with my king because the threat is very simple. Bishop f5, discovery check and taking the rook on e8. So I would have to play something like king g7 or king h6. And here I didn't like the move rook g5, king f6 and bishop takes d5. But I have rook takes c3 here. And I saw that this position is also winning for black, but looks to me a little bit hectic and a little bit risky. Why would I give him so much pawns here? Yeah, it's a pass pawn that will be promoted for sure, but you know, it's just unnecessarily giving him potential defense. That's why I played king g6 first, because I want to bring my king to f6, reduce his counterplay, and then later, like this pawn is waiting, and you can always take this pawn. That's the lecture you should learn, to have patience in chess. That's very important. Don't rush for anything. Bring your king closer. If there is no, of course, if there is no any threats, like rook g5 followed by some, you know, more checks. Of course, he needs more pieces for the attack on the king. Like when it's generally the endgame, the concept is to bring your king closer to the center. He decided to go for h5 check. I played king f6. He pushed f4. That's simply what I want. Now I can safely take on a3. My king is near the pawn on e6, and h6 is always watched by my rook on e8, so he can't promote. Even if he promotes, then we're gonna collect more of these pawns, and we have simply passers that will be a queen sooner or later. So now my opponent is thinking, what is the best strategy to a last call to create some counterplay? Maybe with this pawn here. He played rook g5, still doesn't have any big threats because on this check we can always drop our king on f7. I just simply collected the pawn on c3, which also targets the bishop. It's initiative. And the next I will go with pawn. He played rook g6, I went king f7, and he brought a king on g2. Now there is just simple win, where you should not hesitate to do that. I was about to make the rook move, maybe rook a8, and then rook takes a2. That's the move that I was thinking, but I found much simpler idea. Of course, rook e8 could drop the pawn on e6. I just took on h3, and the point is when the king takes, I start pushing, then I start pushing the other pawn. They will be supported with the rook on c8, and he resigns the game. That was very easy, quick win against King's Indian attack system. Now we are proceeding to the 7th round. We are 4 out of 6, solid result, and I'll see you in the next round.